If your feet have been feeling different lately, more tingly, colder than the rest of you, slower to heal when you nick them shaving or catch them on something. You've probably blamed your circulation or your age or your shoes. There's something simpler worth checking first, and it has nothing to do with your feet at all. Here's the idea behind this whole video. Picture a garden hose. If something changes near the tap, even something small, a little less pressure, a slight kink, the very end of the hose is where you'd notice it first. Not because the end of the hose is special, because it's furthest from the source, and anything affecting the whole system shows up there earliest and most clearly. Your feet are at the end of the hose. They're the furthest point from your heart, supplied by the smallest blood vessels and the longest nerves in your entire body. So when something changes in how your body is handling blood sugar, even something mild, even something that wouldn't yet show up on a standard blood test, your feet are often where it becomes noticeable first. This isn't a small or unusual finding. Researchers have followed people for years before they were ever diagnosed with diabetes, and found that changes in the nerves and circulation of the feet were already present, sometimes 5 to 10 years earlier. Your feet aren't just feet. They're an early warning system. The problem is, almost nobody is ever taught how to read it. Here's roughly what's happening underneath all of it, in plain terms. When blood sugar runs a bit higher than it should, even mildly, it changes the environment that your nerves and your smallest blood vessels are sitting in. Nerves need a very steady, very specific environment to send signals properly, and the smallest blood vessels need a similarly steady environment to stay open and flexible. Neither of those things breaks suddenly. They just start working very slightly less well. And because your feet have the longest nerves and the smallest vessels, that very slight difference shows up there first, long before it's big enough to affect anything closer to the center of your body. Here's why this tends to slip past, even at a regular checkup. A standard physical doesn't usually include a close look at your feet unless you already have a diabetes diagnosis. And the most common blood sugar test, a fasting glucose number, can look completely normal for years even while these smaller changes are quietly underway. So the one place your body would show this first isn't being examined. And the test that might catch it earlier usually isn't being run. It's not that anyone's doing anything wrong, it's just a gap. And it means the information is sitting there, on your feet, waiting for someone to actually look. Before the list, one thing worth saying clearly. If you recognize a few of these, it does not mean you have diabetes, and it doesn't mean anything is wrong with you specifically. Plenty of these signs have other explanations too. Dry skin can just be dry skin. Cold feet can just be cold feet. What matters is the pattern. One sign on its own probably means nothing. 2 or 3 together, especially if they've crept in gradually over the last few years, are worth paying attention to. That's the whole point of this video, not to worry you, but to give you a reason to look a little closer at something you'd otherwise never connect to anything. One thing before the list. If you have any wound on your foot that isn't healing, any area that's gone numb suddenly, or one foot looks noticeably different in color or temperature from the other, that's not a watch this video situation. That's a call your doctor this week situation. Everything else here is about catching something early and gently on your own time. Here they are. Some of these you'll recognize immediately. A couple might genuinely surprise you. Sign 1. Especially at night, especially when you're lying still enough to actually notice it. During the day you're moving, distracted, and it's easy to miss. The nerves running to your toes are some of the longest in your entire body, stretching all the way from your spine to the tip of each toe. Being the longest, they're often the first to register that something's slightly different, long before anything else does. Sign 2. Some people describe it as their feet feeling like they're glowing from the inside, even though nothing looks different on the outside and nothing's touching them. It happens for the same reason as the tingling. The long nerve fibers in your feet reacting to a small change before anything else in your body shows a sign of it. Sign 3. If you've started reaching for socks at night when you never used to, or your feet stay cold long after the rest of you have warmed up under the blankets, that's worth paying attention to. The The smallest blood vessels in your entire body are in your feet, and they're often the first to narrow slightly when blood sugar runs a bit high, even mildly, even before anything else in your circulation has changed. Sign 4. A nick from clipping your toenails, a scrape from a shoe, something that used to close up in a few days now takes a week or two. There are two things happening here at once. The blood supply that would normally bring healing nutrients to that spot is doing slightly less than it used to. And the nerve signals that would normally make you notice and protect that area are slightly quieter than they used to be. Most people just file this under, I guess I heal slower now. Sign 5. Even with the same moisturizer you've always used, even using it more often than before. The nerves that control the sweat glands in your feet are some of the same ones affected early on, and when they're not sending the signal properly, your skin loses its natural moisture from the inside. Moisturizer can only do so much about a problem that starts underneath it. People sometimes notice this most around the heels, where the skin is already thicker, and assume it's just dryness from standing or walking, when really the moisturizing system itself has quietly turned down. Sign 6. This is one of those changes that's almost impossible to catch in the moment, because it happens so slowly. If you have an old photo of your feet from 10 or 15 years ago, it might be worth a look. Hair follicles need a steady blood supply to keep producing hair, and they're sensitive to even small, gradual reductions in it. Sign 7. Almost like the skin has been smoothed or polished, especially around the shins. This happens because the small vessels just under the skin are working a little differently than they used to, and the skin itself responds by thinning slightly. Most people notice it without ever connecting it to anything. Sign 8. Reduced circulation makes feet more prone to fungal infections, which is usually what's behind nails that have slowly thickened or changed color over a year or two. This is the kind of thing people mention to a podiatrist, get the nail itself treated, and never think to mention it to their regular doctor. Why would a toenail be relevant to anything else? Sign 9. Think about stepping out of the shower onto a tile floor. Most people can feel right away whether that floor is warm or cool. If you've noticed your feet take a moment longer to register that, or don't pick up on small textures, a pebble in your shoe, a seam in your sock, the way your hands would, that's specifically about the smallest nerve fibers in your feet. This is often the very first thing to change, sometimes years before any of the other 8. If this is the one that sounded familiar, it's worth taking seriously, not because it's an emergency, but because out of everything on this list, it's the earliest. 3 things, and all of them are simple. None of them require anything you don't already have at home, and none of them cost you anything beyond a few minutes. Tonight, do a quick test. Sit down, close your eyes, and have someone gently touch different spots on the bottom of both feet with something soft, a cotton ball, the soft end of a pen. See if you can feel it equally everywhere, on both feet. Then do the same thing on the palm of your hand, for comparison. If your feet feel noticeably less than your hand does, or one foot feels less than the other, just write that down. Not to worry about tonight, just to have, as information, the next time you're at a doctor's office. You can do this same test again in a month and compare the two. Second, at your next appointment, ask specifically for an A1C test, not just a fasting blood sugar number. A1C looks at your average blood sugar over roughly the past 3 months, which is why it tends to pick up on things earlier than a single fasting reading. It's a standard, well-established test, not something unusual or expensive. It's just not always included automatically. If your last set of blood work didn't include it, asking for it costs you nothing and takes 30 seconds. Third, and this one takes no extra time at all. At the end of the day, when you're already taking your shoes and socks off anyway, spend 15 seconds actually looking at your feet. Any new marks, cuts, color changes, anything that looks different from yesterday. That's the whole habit. Just look. That's it. If even 1 or 2 of those 9 signs sounded familiar, that doesn't mean anything is seriously wrong. It means your feet might be trying to tell you something a little earlier than your next scheduled blood test would. A lot of what gets called normal aging is really just the body quietly responding to small changes that have been building for years. And feet happen to be one of the places those changes show up first and most visibly, simply because of where they sit in the body. None of the 9 signs in this video are dramatic on their own. That's exactly why they're easy to miss, and exactly why they're worth 15 seconds of attention. Do the foot test tonight with someone in your house, even just once. Write down which signs, if any, sounded familiar. And if you've got a doctor's appointment coming up, put Ask About A1C in your phone right now, before you forget. If you want to know more, write the number of the sign that sounded most familiar to you in the comments. I read them, and they help decide what gets covered next. And if this was useful, subscribing means the next one finds you without you having to go looking for it.